that we carry along the civil society in this conversation, and that's the reason why I have my guest. My guest is the State Director of the Center for Human Rights and Accountability Network, the acronym known as CRAN, and he is none other than Utwikon Franklin Isong, someone who's been very much in the struggle, especially involved in civil society advocacy. Good afternoon and welcome, Utwikon.
Good afternoon, Ike. Good to be here.
Utwikon, I recall the last time you and I had a conversation on radio preparatory to this strike. You told me that you were already ready to mobilize for the strike, and you had already prepared yourself and some other persons affiliated to you for this strike. You refer to it, I quote you, as perhaps another Occupy Nigeria. Utwikon, let's go back to what you told me on radio. Thank God that strike has been suspended. Would we have seen an Occupy Part 2?
I will not join you in Thanksgiving because I had already made up my mind that today, that we will be on the street, that tomorrow rather, we will be on the street. And we had done a wider consultation preparing to occupy the street for once. For us who have been in the struggle for decades, when we stay without being on the street, it's as if we are doing nothing. And so when we had opportunity to also tell the government that what you are doing is wrong, we are joyfully in doing it because it's what we've been called to do. To us, it's like a call to duty. And so when the NLC-TUC made the announcement, having consulted with us and other stakeholders, we are happy about it, and we are ready to ensure that we will occupy the streets and tell Nigerians that there is need for the government to rethink and reverse to status quo ante. We in our own organization, we are not against the removal of subsidy, because we had joined a similar protest to asking for the government in power in 2013, 2014.
That was a good
Jonathan
administration
to remove the subsidy. And so we had occupied Nigeria before, asking that it be removed. We call it a scam. It remains a scam. It has not, our stand has not changed. And so when the outgone president attempted, to remove it, we are only saying, carry out a wider consultation. Let it be that you have put in mechanisms in place to cushion the effect of the hardship that will come after you have removed subsidy. And so when the president, during the inaugural speech, made the announcement that subsidy is gone, for us, it was a hasty decision. For us, it was an action taken in a hurry. We had thought that there would have been a need for a wider consultation, for a wider, outreach, and then get the views, and then tell us your plans, what you intend to do to cushion the effect that we are now facing. Because you have put Nigerians have passed through so much of stress in the past 6 months. Before election, we had the issue of the cash grant, that is the cash swap policy. We had the issue of lack of petrol supply, scarcity. And so now we just after election, we are entering into another phase of another struggle. So Nigerians have passed through so much hardship, and I wouldn't want a government to make us to get used to suffering, like it is our own culture to suffer in the midst of plenty. That is why we were, saying that the government would have been able to consult widely and let us know the mechanism put in place to cushion the effect that will arise from these decisions.
Okay, I'm glad that we will not be saying that Occupy, because I wonder what it'll be like. But there was something you said, which for me is key to this conversation. You were part of that struggle during the Jonathan administration. I recall vividly in that area in Ojota in Lagos, and subsidy was clearly spelt out as a fraud, and the Jonathan administration was fingered for lacking the willpower to tackle the issue of subsidy. But the administration that also partook in that particular Occupy Nigeria had the opportunity for 8 years, and they did not remove subsidy.
The reason why
and you were part of that.
The reason why the former or the immediate past administration could not remove the subsidy, simply put, the president was the Minister of Petroleum.
How does that change things? How does that change
the
things?
president presided over the scam, because this is a matter that has a ministry that oversees it. The Ministry of Petroleum oversees everything about petroleum activities. And so the president was the minister of petroleum. I wouldn't know what he was gaining. I wouldn't know whether he had any gain in it. So when you talk of political willpower to remove it, when he was the minister of petroleum, so if he couldn't remove it, or if he didn't remove it, if he didn't attempt to remove it, it could be that there is something that he was gaining from it.
Allegedly.
If he wasn't gaining from it, as I say, it could be. I wasn't too sure, but I'm still, I'm still in the midst of doubt why a president could not, have the willpower to remove
something that he himself was against.
That we were occupying Nigeria. He and the other persons who were in government were saying this particular, policy of government was a scam, and he rode on the wings of that campaign of that Occupy Nigeria to become president. The first thing that he told us was that there will be a change. So he now had a change mantra to begin to campaign that subsidy will be removed. It was a scam. So, but on becoming the president, he now became the Minister of Petroleum. I had thought that he had been there before. He had been a Minister of Petroleum before in the 80s.
In the military era.
He had been a chairman of the PTF, Petroleum Trust Fund, and all of his life he understood the politics of the petroleum industry. And so coming to become the president and commander-in-chief of armed forces, as well as double as the Minister of Petroleum, he would have had the political power to remove the subsidy, but he refused to remove it. But now, having said this, let's not dwell in the past. We're not dwelling in the future. We have moved from the era of Mr. President being the Minister of Petroleum. Will the President and Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, appoint a Minister of Petroleum that will take charge and address this issue headlong? Will he allow himself to toe the line of his predecessor of not appointing a minister that will now oversee this ministry, and rather have a Minister of State? That is the question that I want to be asking. As he prepares his list of appointees that will be sent to the Senate for screening, will there be someone who will be appointed as Minister of Petroleum, or he will assume the office as well as with other issues? Because key sector that is sustaining our economy is the petroleum sector. Nigeria is running a mono economy driven by petroleum industry. And so you need to have someone who is dedicated to that particular sector. The hands of Mr. President is filled with the issue of security, the economy, the power sector, the road network, the foreign affairs, defense, and the rest. And then you now also include the Ministry of Petroleum. That will be too much. So let us hope that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu will deviate from the path of his predecessor, and then, since he has now come up to make a pronouncement that subsidy is gone, we will now have someone who will now be empowered by the ministry, by his charge of office, to carry out actions that will now be checking how the sector operates. I believe that if we deregulate completely, the market factor will determine the prices. Like we used to have in telecom sector, we used to have only one network. What is it called again? We used to have Nitel. Nitel. We go to Nitel,
which metamorphosed into MTEL,
and
it eventually died off.
We used to have Nitel, and then you could not have any other network. But when the President Obasanjo had the political power, the willpower to deregulate the sector, he now opened up the space to what we now call GSM. You can now stay in your house.
There are options.
You have options. Right now, I have like 4 lines, 4 different networks. If I try this network, it's funny. I switch to this other one, it's funny. And I'm at liberty to use any one I want. That is how life should be made easier for Nigerians. So if the president has now come up to say subsidy is history, is gone, what are the mechanisms put in place to address and cushion the effect? That is why Labour, thought it wise to call for that protest, which has been suspended.
Let us look at.
For me, I still feel that Labour would have allowed us to express ourselves At least even if it means for
But what
1
if
hour on the street.
you're saying you would have preferred a situation where Labour would have allowed for some kind of procession, so to speak,
Even if
but
it's 1 hour.
even if it's 1 hour.
Yes.
But of course, you know the possibility of a hijack and
Well-
and what that can snowball into. So nobody wants that.
Since after the NSAS protest, Nigerians have not been opportune to occupy the street, to also go there to exercise.
So
their
you're
rights.
looking for an opportunity to ventilate.
Well, if
Is
you say
that-
opportunity, I wouldn't see it that way. I see it as a civic duty and as a right that Nigerians should be able to ask the government that they voted into power to do what is right for the benefit and for the good of Nigerians. So Nigerians going to the street, it's not that Nigerians are happy leaving their homes to go and sleep at the stadium or sleep on the park or whatever. But because the government has failed to do what the government ought to do, the cardinal function of every government is welfare and security of its citizens. Has the government been able to do it? I'm saying government now because government is a continuum. The president, Bola Tinubu, has come to inherit the asset and liability of the past government. And so whatever has happened, we see it as government. I'm not saying that the government has ended. So what he will do to address the lapses and pitfalls of the past government is now left for him. But where he fails to do it, Nigerians have the right to go to the street, to occupy the street, and demand for good governance.
And you think that would have brought about a solution?
Well, it will send a signal to the world now that Nigerians are suffering in the midst of plenty. Let's look at it, for example, the issue of first subsidy. Should we be talking about subsidy when Nigeria is one of the crude oil, largest crude oil producing nation? You don't have petrol. How much is the pump price today as we speak? NNPC Limited came up with a fixed price, I think 515 naira also, or thereabout. And then other stations now begin to sell
530, 550, 600.
and the rest. And what right does NNPC Limited, a limited company, have
fixing up
to come and fix price to Nigerians? You should tell us how much you will sell your own price. I'm not coming to fix price for Nigerians. We have other agencies. And why should it be NNPC Limited coming to being the first, taking the lead? Why didn't it wait to allow the other, private companies like Oando and the rest do theirs before you now come and do yours? That is even a government-owned limited. And of course, I agree in the argument that government is not good in doing business. I agree completely, because any business that government put its hands are always, not working. But then you must be able to have, a good footing before you come up to establish a policy. Now you make a policy that subsidy is gone. How have you addressed the harsh economy? This morning I heard that the government has opened borders for, for rice
Inflow.
and other food to come into Nigeria. This is a welcome development, because before now the borders are shut down. The people in the southeast and southwest are not getting, commodities, into their own part of their region. But other part of the country, like the north, these things are still smuggled in.
Well, allegedly,
if you want to say so. So, having officially lift ban on goods like rice, garri, all other commodities to come into the country would also cushion the effect, and this will bring down the prices of food items in days to come. So I agree that fine, we should deregulate. The government should also allow modular refineries to refine petroleum products. Don't forget again that you don't have subsidy in kerosene, you don't have subsidy in diesel, you don't have subsidy in aviation fuel. It's only and even in gas. It's only in
fuel.
Fuel that you have. That is the PMS that you have. So if the government have now come to say we have to remove this subsidy, which we have called scam, then the government should take steps to ensure that they fix up the sectors that will, have will have a fallout from this new regime.
Let us talk about the practicability of, TUC's demands, which for me is very key at this juncture. The two topmost part of their demands. First off, the review of the minimum wage. Of course, you listened to the TUC president there say we need a living wage, and it's pegged at 200,000 naira monthly, and revert back to 185 naira per litre. Now, there's two issues on the table. You think that's even practical in the first place?
Well, the first issue the issue of minimum wage, I will think, I have said over and over that we need living wage. I've even did a survey, and I came here to tell you that the bag of rice is between 50,000 naira and above.
Not now.
Then that
Yeah.
was in December 2022. So as of today now, it is higher to 57 or 58,000 naira per bag, and the minimum wage for a civil servant is 30,000 naira. So a civil servant who wants to buy a bag of rice will have to, save money for 2 months to be able to buy a bag of rice. If you go to other commodities in the market, same thing happens. So also you have in road transport and every other sectors. So I support a living wage for the workers, but it must be something that is practicable. But when you now begin to say 200,000, of course, is to put something on the table for us to for the government and for us to have a discussion, on it. But I can tell you that the 30,000 naira minimum wage given to the civil servant is not practicable. It's not even sustainable, and should be done with.
So if you say 200, it's like wishful thinking, yeah?
Because I never said wishful thinking.
No. I mean, let's be practical. If Labour, TUC is conceiving in its mind that 200,000 is a good place to start your bargaining from, where perhaps you think they probably arrive at a 50 or a 60 or 100.
Well, I think Labour is even patriotic in its thinking, not wishful now. Labour is not wishful thinking. They are patriotic in their thinking that a minimum wage or living wage for a civil servant should be 200,000.
You feel
if
it
it were to be
more?
people like us, yeah, so the people like us would have begun with 500,000. How much is a councillor, for elected councillor, paid? A councillor who is elected to serve at the ward level as a councillor, how much is his salary? He earns nothing less than 200,000 and above, and he has other allowances that comes with it. So if you are looking at that, and he serves office for just a period of time, and he goes to what they call several pay, you have a governor who has served his own state, whether dutifully or not,
After
coming
8
home
years,
after 8 years,
inconvenience allowance,
every other thing
hardship
goes with
allowance,
and then
severance
you now
package,
go with governor's pension
millions.
scheme that will that makes him comfortable for life, and he serves his state for only 8 years. Here is a civil servant who will save for more than 30 years
35.
and could not have a home, a house of its own, and could still be paying rent. And here are the people who are elected to serve. They will be enjoying our food for free. We feed them. We take care of their medicals, take care of their transport, and they will have long chain of convoy terrorizing us on the road with convoy and siren. And then here are the workers who are toiling the soil, working hard for this money to come. And you say the workers don't deserve a living wage. That's unfair.
So what's fair? 500,000.
I
That's
think
for you. That's a
why
good
I
place to
said.
start.
That's why I said.
If it was up to the
If it
civil
was people like
society,
us, yeah, we would have started the debate for this with 500,000 naira as a living wage, because I know no politician can be sustained with even one million naira for a month. 1 million naira can't sustain a politician who is elected or appointed to serve in government. I can tell you that, because they live they have a flamboyant lifestyle that they live. They travel abroad. They have other extra code and the rest that goes around with them. They have chains of aids. So some of the aids are fight among themselves. You have PA to PA to PA to SA, and these are all paid by government funds. So cut down the cost of governance. Get this money. Give people who are actually workers. The popular balance is that soldier come, soldier go,
but barracks remain.
The barracks here are the civil servants. These people who are politicians are the soldiers. They will go. But if the workers who are civil servants, who are tilling the soil, watering the soil for the crops to grow and for this money to come, have to pay these soldiers, to pay these politicians, then are not well fed, well taken care of. That is why you will see them in civil service. They close their job by 2 p.m. They've closed and left office. Some go about selling wrappers and moi and akara, because they must make for ways to make up for what they are being given, which is peanut.
So you're talking about the civil servants now.
Exactly.
So for you, 200 is a reasonable price.
Very patriotic.
Very patriotic. And you think it's achievable?
That's why I said
is it achievable?
Practicable, it's practicable, it's achievable, it's reasonable. If the government were to be sensitive to the plight
for how many percent of workers? Because of course we're talking about the civil service now, which constitutes a paltry perhaps between 5 to 10%, which for me I'm being reasonable by that calculation, because I don't think the civil service in its entirety put together is up to 20 million.
That's it.
I'm not sure. So so this is going to be for only a few persons to enjoy 200,000 naira. What about the private sector?
Yeah, you see, these people go to the same market with us, with those who are in private sectors, with those who are in the public service. Civil servants also go to the same market, shop from the same market with everyone. And so when their salaries have been increased and they are able to take care of their families, it will have a spiral effect in the economy. It will have a spiral effect in the economy because they have their chain of dependent who depend on them. Those ones will also be well taken care of, and then the issue of insecurity would have been addressed. Because here you have a civil servant who is unable to cater for himself, and perhaps he could be a breadwinner of a family, and you have a chain of people who are looking up to him, and he is unable to take care of them. And so what he could do, he will pay for the worst he could. The rest could become could turn to become a major issue in the society by going into crime. So when you take care of your own employee, first of all, let your employee be happy, and then they will be able to satisfy you, and then that will also have a spiral effect in the economy. That will also go around, and then there will be peaceful and there will be harmony in the
now
in the
for you
society.
Let us be very practical in this conversation, because of course as TUC is asking for a wage review perhaps for 200,000, is it about the wage review or to have an economy that even if the money you earn is small, you have a strong purchasing power? Because you could have 100,000 and you don't have strong purchasing power, and even with 100,000 you can't buy enough.
Yeah, you see, when apart from the minimum wage, if you look at the question that the labor is asking for, I think that these issues also have long-term effect.
Short-term, medium-term, and long-term.
And so, apart from the minimum wage, which is a statutory right of the workers, a worker is entitled to his wages. Even the Bible says, by the fruit of thy labor shall thou eat bread. It simply means if you don't work, don't eat. And these people are working. So they should be paid what is deserved, what is deserving, and what is due them. And so I think that the demand for review of the minimum wage is germane, is important, and is necessary, in as much as the government has come up to take action that has caused hardship on Nigerians. Like you have rightly mentioned, out of the over 200 million Nigerians, you are talking about only one segment, the civil service. They can tell you that by the time these other demands of labor are met, it would have a good long-term effect on the economy that will better everyone. That is why people like us would have gone to join the protest, because we believe in the demands of labor. That labor is saying, fix our roads, fix our health sector, fix the schools. Last time we had ASU strike for close to a year. It's because of this. Labor is now putting it in part of their own demands. What ASU asked for, labor has not added it in their demands. Fix the schools. The health workers are asking for better health facilities, better facilities for them to also practice and also carry out their job. We had the issue of when the former minister of labor said the doctors can travel out and we have enough, and before you know it, government came up with a bill trying to see how to gag
mandatory
doctors
5 years.
That will serve 5 years. All these issues will be addressed. Fix the health sector so that doctors will now feel better to save their country. How about the issue of roads? I have said in your program several that we don't have any good federal road in Akwa Ibom State. The east-west road that comes from Lagos to Ondo to Delta to Lagos, Ondo, Edo, Delta, Bayelsa, River State, Akwa Ibom, Cross River, Ebonyi State is cut off. They are going to clean up exercise. It's abandoned. No government will put it as a manifesto campaign promises, and they will leave it there. Go and look at the east-west road. Look at the Calabar to highway that links Akwa Ibom with Abia State and the rest is cut off. It has become a campaign promise, promise by every government that comes on board. So what Labour is saying, let the government fix the federal highways. Once this is done, it would have encouraged interstate transport of commodities. Let Labour also have mass transport schemes.
Yes.
That will also help to reduce the transport fare of workers. And then they will put this transport scheme on the highway that will also help them to bring in income to maintain the vehicles. So all what Labour is asking for is not about themselves. It is about Nigerians and the welfare of Nigerians.
Okay. Another very important part of their demand, because, I mean, for me, of all the demands for TUC, this too is key for me. The reversal to 185.
Yes.
You think that's even possible in the first place?
Well,
Especially when you're talking about the removal of fuel subsidy, saying, look, and even if you're going to revert first off to 185, you think we'll ever have a 185?
Well, unfortunate, we have a government that always run to the court to get court order to stop his own workers from asking for his rights. Recall that there was a judgment, court order. There was a court order restraining labor from going on strike. Now, that again might have compelled labor to suspend tomorrow's
planned strike.
Would have been strike. But come to think of it, do we want to go back to 185 naira per litre, or do we want to allow the market factors to determine the price? Do we want full deregulation of the petroleum sector, or do we want partial deregulation? I go in for full deregulation because I know the impact and the effect of it, like we have mentioned the issue of the GSM network. That is what I think. So Labour asking the president to revise the policy and let's go back to status quo ante. This may not be possible because you will also allow the government opportunity to also be able to put its own plans and take off from there. The government has come up to say, okay, fine, we have removed it. It was there in the budget that would have lasted till June. You reverse it to 185, and by the end of June, the budget timeline that captured it ends. What happened after then? So the best thing is let us assume that the policy has now been implemented. What are the remedies should be what to be discussing. But saying let us go back to where we were before and then begin to discuss on an empty space. For me, it will be taking the government front and back. But what I am against and where I felt bad about the entire NLC stand and the TUC stand was that the reversal or the suspension of the strike took place in Aso Rock Villa. It would have been after the NLC and the TUC met with the government team and the speaker and they agreed on those terms that they have agreed. The NLC and TUC would have come back to convene a meeting of today and tell all the affiliate union, tell all of us that they had a meeting with the government team and this is what was discussed, what is our view.
So you think they were too hasty in suspending?
Yeah, we would have now made our input and tell the labor, okay, fine, let us agree to suspend tomorrow's strike and then let us ask for this or let us go ahead and accept what the government has offered us. But for government, inviting you to a meeting in the government house, you go to government house, you had a meeting with the government and you come out smiling. You smiling with the government, that ought to be, you ought to be having a bold face. You are smiling with government, now gives room for people to now be suspicion that there's something that passed under the bridge. Before now, people have believed that Labour has no political muscle to go out for the protest. So, but now that Labour has given us this particular, impression, it is very, very sad. Labour would have come out from that meeting, call a meeting today, tell all the union and all of us that this is where we are, what do we do? Then at the end of the day, we would have said, okay, let's suspend the strike. It would have been Nigerians, workers, suspending the strike, not Joe Ajero and the Osifo sitting in Aso Rock and announcing that the strike is suspended because they had a meeting with the government team. This, for me, is completely unfair to the Nigerian labor in the country.
Where do we go from here? Because, of course, I did talk about the action plan, something I called action plan. They talked about how they can engage and something here that's about 7 points I'll read to you, though, the federal government and the TUC and the NLC to establish a joint committee to review the proposal of the minimum wage increase or upward and establish a framework and a timeline for the implementation, which is very, very key as well. And number two of it, also the federal government and the TUC and NLC to review the World Bank financed cash transfer scheme, the proposed inclusion of low-income earners in the program. And of course, another one very key. What about the 800 million that was proposed? Because of course, that's supposed to be that World Bank,
Yeah, I think the past
money.
government, obtained the loan, and we believe that.
But they didn't get it.
They didn't get it. Yeah, so the loan wasn't released. So we believe that this particular government now will, take the loan, or facility rather, and then get to the poorest of the poor. I always have issues with poorest of the poor. How did the government arrive at who is the poorest of the poor is still like a smoke screen for people like us, because I don't know how. For example, in my own community, I don't know how the government ignored those people who are poor in my community. And the government tag the facility, they have, when they want to do palliative, they will say poorest of the poor. And then they will just sit somewhere in Abuja, and then they will transfer money to people that are cronies. So for me, the facility, when it is obtained, the government should channel it to addressing issues that would affect every Nigerian. If you want to give monies palliative to the poor of the poor, get to know who actually is the poor amongst the Nigerian.
Do we even have data? Do we have a data to this?
We don't have it. But the ones we have are politically motivated, that was cast by politicians during that issue of the COVID-19 palliative.
That is for the COVID-19 distribution of palliatives.
Of a palliative. So you don't know who is actually the poor. Because for example, I was given palliative. I took it. I took I think 3 cups of rice and 2 packets of Indomie. I took it and I gave it to someone who wants it. So if I could be in the list, it means that the list is 40.
You shouldn't have been in the list.
That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. Because there are persons who are really the downtrodden that are not captured.
Somebody just sat somewhere and say, if you don't have Franklin on the list, there will be issue. But that should not be the case. So that's the point. So let us look at who actually is the poorest of the poor that deserve this palliative to be given. And if you want to address issues that will touch somebody like us, me and Ike, you fix our road. Let's have steady power supply. Let's have security. Let's have health sector working. Let's have our public school working. By so doing, you would have touched my life.
What about
that? Would affect the way I spend in using my generator fuel to run my gen, and the money I spend in my road in maintaining my vehicles would have reduced
because of the
road are now okay.
Road, yes.
The health sector now, I would not be going to the public health facility to attend
rather than going to
the private
somewhere
schools.
else and very expensive.
So also to my children who are in public schools who do well compete with those who are in private schools. This is what I ask the government to touch my life. But they don't give me any palliative. I don't need it.
But this issue of the refinery, which is also contained in this resolution of engagement,
yes, let it work.
Is it even short term? Can you have a functional refinery in short time? You think it's possible? The Dangote refinery is in the offing, by the way, and we're expecting from August.
And I can tell you that Dangote refinery will function maximally. Will operate, in fact, it will be much stronger than the one than Nigerian refinery. You know why? Because Nigerian government has not been able to do business as a government. Let's look at it. We have aluminium splitting company at Tikorabasi, Ascom. Has it functioned? It's a federal government facility. We have Ajokuta steel mill.
It's still there in Kogi State.
Kogi State. Has it functioned? We have Okubiku paper mill. It's there. It's become moribund. How about the Nigerian air, which of course has become
well, Andy Sirika delivered it before he left office. He delivered it before he left office. But we don't know where the plane is now.
So you should be asking him, how about Nigerian air? So Nigerian government has never put its hands in any business and it works. But I can tell you that the Nigerian government can support Dangote and it will work.
By buying stake.
Buying stake. So what I think the Nigerian government should do is to sell off the 3 refineries. The one in Port Harcourt, the one in Warri, the one in Kaduna. Once this is sold off, you would have allowed people who have the resources to go buy it and operate it. We used to have NAFCON.
So we cannot fix these refineries. Must we sell it off?
You are forgetting that we used to have NAFCON for fertilizers
exactly.
plant in One.
Yes.
Today is history. It's history. But assuming the plant was sold off to Nigerians who can run it, today it will still be,
So for you, what about you talked about deregulation, because we need to conclude this conversation. You talked about deregulation. That will also allow for more licenses to be given, especially in the area of what you call it,
modular refineries,
and all of that.
Who can, like state government can go into it, like we have in we have the power subsector where you have the Ibom power plant.
Yes.
Government can now go into it.
Okay.
It makes no economic reasoning or sense for anyone to say the entire country is in the hand of one man. He alone can license, who can operate airline, who can operate aviation, who can do road, who can do power, who can do this. Let this thing be decongested from the exclusive list of a constitution.
Okay.
To the concurrent list, so that the governors who can have the resources to go into it. For instance, in Akwa Ibom, Obonwata came up with Amakwe refinery.
Okay.
By now would have gotten.
Okay. Otwekong, I'm going to ask you one question, and I need a yes or no. And I don't need you to be pessimistic in giving me this reply. I just want to ask a straight question, and I need a reply. Do you see the government and Labour having a headway when they reconvene on the 19th of this month? You think they'll have a headway, or we might just see Labour just go all out and then maybe that strike you're looking for, they probably just give you to make you happy?
I want to be pessimistic here.
Why?
And I want to also be a prophet of the doom. Let my prophecy be false, but let it be that I have said it, that Labour will not have the political will to muster workers to go out for protest, because I have just given you the fact that Labour has not done well by you went for a meeting. So
you feel from now to the 19th, this engagement will not bring anything.
It will continue. Workers will continue to engage.
So you feel Labour will compromise?
Well, I don't want to use the word compromise because it's very strong. But I want to say that Labour has become so weakened that it could sit in the corridor of government of power to announce that it has suspended its own strike that it called a week ago.
Okay.
This for me is a shocking news for Nigerians.
Well, you've listened. You listened to my guest, the State Director for the Center for Human Rights and Accountability Project, CRAN. Otwekong Franklin Isong, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Otwekong has really exhibited a lot of pessimism in the course of this conversation. I can't blame him, though, for somebody who's seen so much from government, and he doesn't exactly trust the system, and I can't blame you. Thank you all the same. But of course, it's very necessary that we be optimistic, because of course there's a brighter future.
Well, I have seen so much, so I just believe that nothing is new under the sun. Whatever comes, I will take it.
Nothing is new under the sun, that's what he says. But of course, we're optimistic that the Tinubu-led administration will surprise a lot of Nigerians. One of the biggest news was the opening of the border today. That saw a lot of jubilee.